Hi, welcome back to the next step of our texturing process. My name is Helge Maus from pixeltrain. Our toothbrush has now a wood texture, but this wood texture looks too much CG. It's extremely clean and the brush will not look used at all. So to now get the painting layers on this toothbrush, I will teach you my technique, how I normally work in Substance Painter. I don't know if it's the right technique or if it's the best technique, but it works for me. And so let's try the first step here by changing the colors. No wood is ever equally colored. And to do that, most people tend now to add here a paint layer and start painting on it. But I'm not the painter, and what I like is I want to have a little bit more flexibility later to change my decisions. So I want also in Substance Painter to work procedurally, and this is possible. So get rid here of the paint layer. Instead of that, I add a fill layer here, and I make this fill layer red. Ooh, it looks terrible, I know. The next thing I do, I think about what I want to do, and the first thing, like I've said, is I want to have a little bit of a color variation. So let's say this is dark in color. And to do that now procedurally, I work with the fill layer, because then I can change here all the parameters every time I later go into that. And now to tell the system where I want to place these darkened colors, I use a mask. To add a mask here, you can use your right mouse button. Here you have a white, a black, or a bitmap mask. Or what you can do is you click here on this little icon and I add a black mask. So the red is now gone because black mask means, same like in Photoshop or Krita or all the other applications, black means zero, nothing at all. Now I start to change this layer here. And I hope you see this blue line here around, so you can switch now between this fill layer itself and its mask. And it's important that you are now on the mask. If you have selected the mask, you see that your painting abilities stripped down, because you can only paint on a mask with the color between black and white, and so you see here is a grayscale color. And if you want, for example, to demonstrate the process, we are painting with white, and if I now paint, I paint a red shiny strip. The reason is that I painted here in the mask with white, and this material which is defined here and which I now can change all the time, you see, is now revealed in this mask. And that's my whole process. So what I do, black mask again, is I want to change now only the mask and don't change here the fill for this moment. And red is a good indicator color for me to decide where I want to place something. What you also can do is, what people tend to do is, they sometimes switch into the channel here which they want to affect and see this here alone. For example, if you go here to mask and now draw here, you see only the mask, because yeah, this is the mask of this layer. And you can check this also, but I like the idea with the red color here, but this is also a possibility. So press the M key and get rid with the black mask again. Okay, let's start now. What I want to do is darker color, and what I want to do is I want to give Substance Painter the job to do that. So for this we have a whole bunch of grunge maps, and if you go here to procedural, for example, you see a whole bunch of grunge maps here. You also can filter here by typing in grunge. If you now select one of these maps here, you can look through them until you find something which you like, but we can test this now. That's the cool thing. So what we do is we want to add it here to this layer, but not here through a grayscale or a stencil. I can add to this mask a whole stack of other procedural processes, and these are here under effect. So if you open this now up, you can add generators, paint layer, fill layers, and so on. But these are only affecting the selected area, which is the mask. So I take, for example, now a fill layer, and you see it's placed here under the mask. So this fill layer here affects the mask, and now you see the mask is gray. And if you go here and say, show me the mask, you see that's exactly the gray which you see here. Okay. If you now select this fill layer here, you can have a fill layer here. And now we can tell the system, okay, I want to use a grunge map as a test. So let's look through the grunges here. And these are fingers and yeah, dirt, scratchy dirt. I search for something which is not too equal. Let's try rust. So drag it over. Okay. And now we have the rust here, and now we see, oh, our seam is back, but we know now how to fix this. So you have a fill layer here. This is the fill. So select the fill layer, go into the options of the fill layer and switch this to triplanar. Done. And now we can start placing it. So if you want, you can add your widget again, move it around, or you can R key, scale it, or if you want, E key, rotate this. So same like we have done before. I deactivate this again. I want then to go here. And what I now want to do is I want to have more blotches here. So you can go into the balance and change that here. Remember, this is only the mask, and also we can change the contrast. Okay, let's try something like that here. And now we have our mask. And what we now can do is we can switch back here to the red and press the M key. And now you see that these colors here are now masked and brought here to the surface. Now our wood is not red, so what we can do now here is I go into the color here and I want to pick a neutral color. So let's first deactivate here the visibility, go here, hold down here on the color picker, and I move here in the dark areas of my wood to pick this. And now we have this color. We can make it a little bit darker to have it a little bit more used, darker than here these stripes. And if we now activate this again, we now see we have a really fine placement of darker areas here. What we also do is I deactivate all the channels which I don't need, because we made sure that we have every channel here in the background. So height, roughness, metal, normal. And then we can say, okay, now we have that. Let's go into the layer mode here and go to multiply. So we multiply this now on top. This is one way of doing it, and then we can bring here the slider down and make it only a little bit visible, something like that here, for example. If you switch it on and off, you see it's a little bit too much. I want to have a subtle change here of this. And then we can discuss, okay, if it's now darker here, it's a little bit more used. Maybe also the roughness is different than the original one. And if you go here to the background and take a look here, what we've defined, the roughness was defined here with this roughness. So we can now override this at this layer here. We say roughness. And if you want, you can see it here. If you go to the roughness, that's the original roughness, which comes from the layer below. Then we go in here, say this layer now also contributes roughness. You see it here directly. And it's much, much less rougher. So it's black. Black means 0 or tends to go to 0, so less roughness. So I want to have it brighter, more rough than the original one. Something like that here. You see now these areas are rougher than the other ones. And now we want to see everything. M key over the viewport. And now you can rotate the light and you see we have some blotches here from these colors, and also we have an area which is a little bit rougher than the original one. I know this is a subtle change, but the normal way of working, and we don't have time in this tutorial to do now all the steps, would be that I have more than one of these layers. I work subtle and I add more and more stuff. It's really good to have reference at the same time to look what are features which you like. Let's do a little bit of damage. Damage is something we always want to do, so let's make a next fill layer. And we say this is edge damage. Okay, and you will not believe that I go here and say I want to have it red, and we want to have a black mask. We have the mask now, and this time we take a generator. at the first step. This generator does the same thing like we've done before by hand here with this mask. We want now to change this black mask with the generator. And there are some generators in the system here. We have here, for example, a dirt generator, dripping generator, fiberglass, and metal edgeware, and so on. And there are really good tutorials out there to understand what these generators do. And I want to have the first damage here on the edges of my wood, because these are the edges which are typically used. And for this, I use, for example, the metal edgeware. And if you add this here, through my idea that you have it red here, you directly see where these effects now happen. And to look here into the generator itself, I close the parameters for a moment. You see that this generator here needs maps. And that is the reason why we have baked out all these maps. Because these generators have to understand the surface and how the normal maps work and so on. And this exactly is done now here. Okay, let's close the image inputs and open the parameters. This metal edgeware generator works with all these levels, and like I've said, there are really good tutorials out there, but I want to show you how it works really fast. So I remove the grunge amount here for the first step and also the curvature here. And you see now we have nothing, also the wear. Let's go. The first thing we want to address is this rounded edge here. And this is found by the curvature weight. So if you increase that now, and we also have to add the wear level because this is the multiplier for everything, you now see that we are really sharp here on the edge. But not only the edge, it also uses here the normal map and so on. And what you now can do is you can now tell the system how broad this curvature weight would be. And we also have here micro details, which you also can change and so on. So what we now do is, after we have found the edge here, which we want to have used, we can now smooth it out. You see, this is a smooth amount. And also we have a scaler here for the grunge. So we haven't add grunge. What grunge means is, if I bring this here a little bit up, let's do it like this. And we do here the smoothness not too strong. And the curvature up. You see that this here is still really, uniform. And what grunge does, it breaks it. You see, it breaks this uniform idea, and with the scale you can tell how big the details are which you add here. So this is also now something which you have to play with, and keep in mind that this here later is for us only the damage area. So I bring it really fast in an idea which maybe work, but I will do it later outside of this tutorial a little bit more. So yeah, something like that here. Then we go out here again to our red, and now we say we don't want to have color. Yes, roughness we want, metal and normal we don't need. And with the height now, if you now look, I want to lower this. So this is 0, it means no change to the surface. And if we bring it to the left, we now bring it down. I overdo it so that you see it. Yeah, and now you can say, I want to have only a little bit here. So if the slide is too fast, hold down the Shift key and bring it only a little bit in. Great. And with the roughness, like we have seen before, we have now to decide how rough it should be, and I want that it's brighter than the original one. Okay. Yeah. This is my second layer here now, and if you switch it on and off, you now see, yeah, we have now a little bit of damage here on the edges. And if you now want to have more damages, which I normally want, because maybe also here in this area we have damages, we can stack these things, and that's so cool here. Let's do that. I go back here into the generators, make another generator here. And this one is now, for example, dirt. And dirt works on the surface. So let's Press this time here mask so that we see what's going on. You see before we had that here, now we have the dirt. And this dirt generator, you have a dirt level, it's the same like before. How much do we want to have? We have here grunge again, no grunge, much grunge, and you see grunge is the main idea here. We can change now the size. These are really micro problems in wood, so let's do a little bit of that here. And yeah, we also can have an edge masking and so on. And now comes our problem. If we now activate both of them, you see, in the moment you add now the dirt, it occludes completely our metal edgeware here. So we have to combine these two. And that's really cool. Here we have a stack, like a layer stack. It's a layer stack, but only for the mask. We can now go here to the dirt and now think, how do these two black and white images mix? And we can open this up here and you see all the mix mode, which you maybe know from your painting application. You can play with pass-through and so on, but in the moment you switch here something, you see it goes now blue. And the cool thing is now you can use your arrow up and down here to walk through all these different modes. And what I want is an additive method, and yeah, you find something here which works for both. And for example, you can go here to linear dodge, which adds now both together. And now you can mix here with the opacity if you like. So how much of this here do you want to have? Or, sorry, I have to go back here to the mask. I also can change that here and so on. So this is the idea which you have here. So make some micro stuff here, go back to the complete thing and take a look here. And activate, deactivate. I think we need more here. Yeah. Let's test this really fast first with the color again. Yeah. You see now how it works. Here are our micro details. Yeah, and that's it for here. So let's go deactivate the color. The height is the same like before. Maybe we can change here the height a little bit more and change the roughness. And so we have now a wood which doesn't look too unused. We have some color variations in it, some damages in it. And if you now want to add a little bit more life, we want to have a wet layer on the whole thing, because maybe you have used this toothbrush. So let's do the same thing again. We go here now, say this is wet, and activate this. And then we go into the black mask again, and now we have to decide how wetness maybe looks. So let's add here a fill as a base. And then we look around here in our grunge apps if we find something which looks like water or wettish stuff. And the more you work with this tool, the more you then find the right stuff here. The smudges maybe are not so bad. Directional. Let's try this here. Bring it here on. Then we go into the projection, try planar again, and let's key into the mask. More in this direction maybe. Yeah, let's try this, and if you don't like it, we can change it later together, or you work on your project then. So let's go here to triplanar, bring it a little bit in. I reset it again here with this button, and let's take a look here. I'm not so happy with that. What's about this here? Drops. But it's wood. Normally it takes the water and transports it. Yeah, maybe something like that here would be cool. Yeah, let's test it. So let's go back here now to our red layer. And instead of red, what we now do is a whole bunch of operations. Metal and normal we don't need. What we need is a height, because water sits on top. So what we do is I select height and bring it up. Something like that. Oops, back here. Now you see the red comes out. Okay. Then roughness down, because we want to have it reflective. See it here. If we change that here, now it's reflective. And then we can go here into the color. And now we can change the color. Now comes the point, how to mix that? What I want is I want to have the wood darker because it's wet, but still the other ones like this here. And one hidden feature of Substance Painter is that we have these opacity and these mix modes here for every layer, for every of the channels in our texture set. Here, base color, height, and so on. So if you say, okay, for height, the mode is okay, for roughness, the mode is okay, but not for the color, what you can do now is you have here the selector, and you say for the base color, for example, I want to change here the mode, for example, to multiply, so it gets darker. But if you go now here to, for example, the roughness, you see that the mix mode is normal again. So you switch here which kind of mixing you want to have, and then you can change it here. So that's the cool thing at this point here. And what we now can do is I take again here something brownish, make it darker, not so saturated, a little bit saturated. And then let's try something like that here. Okay. So this is the approach which I went for texturing the wood. I think now you know enough about this process here. You will find my final file in the Houdini files which I publish on Gumroad. And the next step now would be baking out the maps from here and bringing them back to Houdini. See you in a moment.